You can be a very high-paid, high-positioned, high-performance slave.
We got Christian Ray Flores. He comes from a background of being a performance coach. He's co-founder of Third Drive Media and a former pop star turned entrepreneur. He's raised tons of money for startups and nonprofits, and now he helps leaders build extraordinary lives without losing themselves in the process.
And then probably, I would say, year 9, let's say, hypothetically, right? I was like, is this all there is? And I think for me, I realized I felt very conflicted about it because, first of all, I understand how lucky I am to even be in that position. Like, very few musicians get to that place. I was just extraordinarily lucky. Also, the fear of this is here, and if I want to pursue something, what if I fail there? Competence trap is when you're so good at it, at something, and you're so good at it that you can't quit, but it's making you miserable on some level. That happens a lot, actually. If you don't focus, you're like a flashlight. If you focus, you're a laser. Flashlight doesn't really change anything. A laser does and cut through a lot of stuff. So we turn you into a laser when it comes to expertise. You have a focal point. You focus that into incredible intellectual property, and you have to learn how to create content that changes people's lives.
Well, hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to the Friday Habit. And today we're blessed. We got Christian Ray Flores. I'm excited to talk to him because he comes from a background of being a performer, a performance coach, and, he's co-founder of Third Drive Media and a former pop star turned entrepreneur. He's raised tons of money for startups and nonprofits, and now he helps leaders build extraordinary lives without losing themselves in the process. And so we're going to unpack some skills and some habits for sustainable life and business. So how's it going, my man?
It's going well, and it's going even better after that very sunny intro that I love.
Well, I'd love to. It's doing some research on you. It seems like you've lived multiple lives already. So, pop star, founder, coach. Which version of those would you say is, the worst? Every
amazing thing has a shadow side, right? So I can give you the shadow side of each iteration, each incarnation of my career. I've changed careers like 5 times. So, but yeah, it's there's a shadow side of each. Which one do you want to know?
Well, I mean, I totally get that because I was a musician. All of my 20s, we were signed and we traveled, and I got to live my dream for a living. But, people are like, oh, don't you miss it? And I was thinking, the year before we broke up, I was only home like 2 weeks out of 3 months,
right.
And so now with the family and all that, I just can't imagine doing those things. So as glamorous and as fun as it looks, it's sometimes there's aspects of it that aren't so great. So
yeah, I mean, on the show business side, that was maybe like a decade of my life. Sort of the same thing. I was like, all right, this is super cool. I also want to build a family, and that's not going to mesh well.
Yeah, they're not really conducive.
Not very conducive at all. Super cool, but I want to do something outside of that geography that I was in. I was, in the sort of Eastern European 15 countries, post-Soviet space. That was the shadow side. Super cool, but I'm doing pop music, but I also have a master's degree in economics. I want to do entrepreneurship. It's not really there. At the time, it wasn't there. I mean, I think now it would have been a slightly different story. But so there's all kinds of things that were popped up after I reached what essentially for most musicians would be like a top 0.001% of life, right? And I go, okay, this is amazing for this chapter. I need to like transition out into something more that I would enjoy more long term.
Yeah. So give us a little backstory on kind of how you got started. I'm assuming that when you were a kid, you kind of dreamed about being a performer and doing that. But then you obviously went to school to get a degree in economics. So you had a backup plan, which is always a good idea. I always tell my kids, like, hey, follow your dreams, pursue your passions, but have a backup plan.
I wish I was that smart. I was not that smart, actually. I was just very musical, and I danced, I sang, and I never thought until I was like halfway through college that this could be a thing, right? So I went to college just because I didn't know what else to do. And it was semi-interesting, basically, what I was doing. And by the way, I did fall in love with economics. I'm still like an economics geek to this point, to this day. So it did stick with me. Also helped me tremendously in sort of show business and post-show business work. Just having that training and that theoretical, intellectual base, even. But at the time, it was not a strategy, man. I was like super young, had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. And I happened to just fall into that particular sort of space. And then I was doing music and dancing on the side. And it was just a hobby until like halfway through, I was like, you know what? I'm actually might be good enough to do this, professionally, right? So that was the beginning of me trying.
Yeah. Because where did you grow up?
Where?
Yeah.
Oh, all over the world. So I'm living in my 6th country and 4th continent.
Okay.
Yeah, so I grew up in Chile, Germany, Russia, Africa, back to Russia.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I changed three continents and 4 countries by age 7. Yeah.
Was your dad like in the military or something like that?
No,
or?
it's more complicated than that. He was an engineer, and we were supposed to just live the rest of our lives in Chile. My mom is Russian. That's why, I was born there. And then there was a military coup, and we were refugees, so we had to be kicked out of the country, got basically asylum in Germany. So the spark that started the whole thing was pretty ugly and scary. And then eventually it sort of transitioned into more expat work. He just got a job in Mozambique in Africa, and he was an engineer there, and that's where I grew up.
Okay. Wow. And at a young age, were you the kid who was always singing and dancing and like entertaining people around? Like,
yeah.
Like how did that kind of develop in you?
I was very, I loved singing, and I never took it seriously because no one in my family had done it. I'd never took it seriously in the sense of professional, right? But I remember this is probably the first type of activity where I remember as a kid, like maybe 12, having a state of flow, like you lose track of time kind of thing. I can do this forever kind of thing, right? So the feeling was there, and there was I was like part of a folk group, Latin American group of kids, and we had like a volunteer teacher who taught us all these Latin American songs. That was basically it. Until we're back in Russia. My parents got divorced. We ended up back in Russia. Then I was like, I'm gonna dance. I became a break dancer, and I became really, really good at it in my late teens. Okay. Yeah, and I was into Michael Jackson and Janet Jackson and break dancing and like mixing styles and choreography. And I was part of this jazz club where I discovered like black music, like Ray Charles and Al Jarreau and Chaka Khan and all these sort of R&B, soul, jazz stream, and that became my jam basically. I just fell in love with that kind of music. So it all sort of came together eventually, right, into something.
Yeah. Do you speak Spanish and do you speak Russian?
I do, and Portuguese. So I speak 4 languages.
And Portuguese.
Yeah, I do.
Dang. Okay, that's great. I love that. I feel like people who grow up overseas and learn multiple languages, it's like your brain just kind of works in a different way because. Yeah, you have to activate those different.
That's what I hear. Yeah, it's
you're like, how would I know though? That's all you've ever known.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. I don't. But I heard that there were studies that apparently it sort of affects the way you think.
Yeah.
But
that's
it's
really
sort of my
cool.
baseline, so I'm not exactly sure how it works.
Yeah. Did you? So growing up, your parents got split when you were in high school.
Yeah. I was 14.
Okay. How did that affect you? As far as obviously. Now you have to decide whether to go with your dad or your mom, or your dad was like, you go with your mom.
No, he wanted us to stay with him, and mom wanted to go. She was so hurt that she wanted to go back to Russia. She's Russian, and both my sister and I decided to go with mom. I think partially because my dad was at fault essentially, and then but it did affect me profound. I was devastated for many years,
Yeah.
actually, because we had a good family. So in the sense that it was a safe place, it was a secure place, it was a loving place, and we had so many adventures, and I couldn't. It was a really good foundation, parenting wise.
Yeah.
And then it all just collapsed, So I was like grieving, not grieving the bad, because sometimes divorces happen, people fight, and there's abuse, and none of that was happening, right? But it did affect me because it was so good, and then I lost it,
Yeah, and sometimes too, I think as a kid, you rise to the occasion, like this is your life, and you don't realize until later on in life you start, taking some stock of how things went, and you thought, oh man, that affected my personality, or I think I started acting like this when that happened, and
Totally.
you kind of look back and see.
Oh yeah, I mean, it messed up my romantic life forever until I was maybe like in my mid-20s.
Because what, you were afraid of commitment?
Yeah,
or afraid
I would
of,
sabotage every relationship I had.
Yeah.
Whenever it got a little serious, I would do something stupid and mean, actually, like I would just, and I would be so cowardly to not have to initiate the breakup. I would like provoke the breakup so that the other person breaks up with me. So it's just pathetic, right? But it did affect me over and over again. That's what I did until I was like 25, 26 probably. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and so, wow, okay, so you have this adventurous life. You're traveling to all these countries, living on different continents. You have a God-given ability for, entertaining and singing and dancing and all these other kind of things. And then you go off to school because it's time to go to college. So you like, well, I like economics and numbers and things like that, so let me study that. And then halfway through college, you realize, like, okay, I'm going to try to go all in on music and pursue this as a career. And so you do that. And then that was like a decade of your life. Like, what, all your 20s, you were just traveling and singing and entertaining?
Yeah, I graduated in when I was 21. I graduated super early with a master's, right? Probably I think I was the youngest in my class, actually. And I've been trying to by then quit college, like, probably for a couple of years, and my mom,
it was like a girlfriend that wouldn't break up with you,
and my mom would just freak out on me, just lose her mind.
Okay.
And I would be like, okay, I'm going to give her a heart attack. I can't. This is not worth it, right? So I'm going to just get it done, right? And it's funny because I stuck with it, and I was like resenting the fact that I had to stay in, and then like year 3, 4, 5, I was like, I'm actually digging. I'm learning something. It's interesting and engaging. Not enough to make a career out of it, right? But and I actually tried for about a year. I was this sort of intern at this international trade company, and I was in these sort of mind-numbing meetings about iron ore trade and things like that. That I was like, shoot me now, I can't do this, and So, but then the music part, if you get a decent degree in something, you're employable, right? So most of my friends went to academia or PhDs or trade or banking or finance. So you get to secure something, next step at least. And for me, it was just not even on the table. I'm like, I'm going to do something that has like a 1% success rate, trying to make music. But I was just compelled. I was like, you know what? I can live in a shoebox. I can try for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and then I'm still 25 by then. Fine, right? I can do that. I'm going to regret not trying, basically. That was sort of my strategy.
Yeah, and that's what I usually, that's what I tell my own kids. I was like, listen, especially when you're young, you have so much time to... A year feels like an eternity when you're young. Yeah. And so it's like to try something and fail, it's like, well, just then get back up and do something else, Oh, totally. It's like, but then you can live your life without having regrets and thinking, oh, what if, It's like, just try and fail in your 20s, figure out what you want to do. And then, in your 30s, really lock down and like, really develop yourself to something and become an expert at it. And then kind of, go through your life in these different stages, I
fully subscribe to that, fully. I think the 20s are just for puzzling. That's it. That's and if the more you puzzle, the better, I think.
Yeah.
Not only because you learn on what you want to do, but you actually pick up skills that are on the surface unrelated that will be actually very useful in the long run. So you become more of a generalist. I think that's a really good thing. It's better to start a generalist and then become a specialist than the other way around.
Yeah, totally. The jack of all trades.
Yeah.
Yeah. Learn a bunch of different skills.
Yeah.
And then once you really start to figure out, okay, what your strength is and all those, then kind of dial down and start to.
Yeah,
to hone
I think
things
so.
in.
I think that's a better sequence, in my opinion.
Yeah. I love this. And I think, especially for you, someone who, does a lot of coaching and advising, it's like having a depth of knowledge and a lifelong of different experiences. Gives you so much to pull from, like a tool belt of experiences. I mean, I think, being a musician, someone might say, oh, well, that's glamorous. But in the same way, like, I know for me, I learned really how to sell as a musician. I got to be on stage and I got to communicate with crowds of people. And then also when I was booking shows, I had to talk to vendor owners, and I had to email people. And there was these skills that you don't think that you're actually developing or growing. But when I look back, I'm like, oh, wow, I learned a lot of those skills that I'm good at now.
Totally.
Pursuing being a musician and living that life,
That's exactly it. Like, even if you change sort of into a different space, the skills are transferable. A lot of them are transferable, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So give me the next phase. So you go, you don't win a Grammy, you don't become the next Ricky Martin or Enrique Iglesias. What happens? And was that difficult? What was the next phase or transition of your life?
I actually did. I mean, for that space, I did become the next Ricky Iglesias.
Okay,
yeah,
nice.
I was one of the top pop artists in all of that post-Soviet space.
Okay, nice.
I mean, I had a string of hits, #1 hits. One of my songs was used as the anthem for the Boris Yeltsin election campaign against the communists. I was on MTV. I was everywhere. Wow, I was doing sports arenas at the peak of it.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah, and so I did do basically everything that someone could do.
Right. Everything you dreamed about, you achieved.
Totally.
And did.
Music videos, multiple albums, MTV, radio, TV, magazine covers, all of it. Right. So it was really, really good. And then probably I would say year 9, let's say hypothetically, right, 8 maybe. I was like, Is this all there is? And I think for me, I realized I felt very conflicted about it, because first of all, I understand how lucky I am to even be in that position. Like, very few musicians get to that place. I was just extraordinarily lucky. Also, the fear of, well, this is here, and if I want to pursue something, what if I fail there? You just don't know, right? But I felt that after sort of really considering it, I was like, you know what? There are people that are born to do one thing, and a lot of musicians are actually that way. They're like, this is what I live and breathe, like since I was 5 or something. And if I'm honest with myself, I'm just not that guy. Like, I speak 4 languages. I like entrepreneurship. I got into spirituality. I went to ministry. I wanted to do philanthropy because I grew up in the third world. I wanted to serve the poor. I wanted to raise a family. So there's all these layers of me that were actually inactive, like, not really. They were dormant in me. Yeah. So on the surface, I was like to the max, right? Creative lifestyle, creating things that are moving millions of people. But actually inside of me, if I'm honest with myself, there are like whole segments of my character, my desire, that were just inactive. And I think that actually happens. It's really like, I know that the pop star thing overshadows it, but it happens to a lot of people that are very successful. I call it the competence gap, trap rather, the competence trap. The competence trap is when you're so good at something, and you're so good at it that you can't quit, but it's making you miserable on some level. That happens a lot, actually.
Well, you see that, right?
Oh,
like
totally.
in Hollywood and
totally.
LA. It's like musicians who've made to the top of the top, or actors who've made, and then they're still depressed and they still don't feel fulfilled, and they, are
in
still
the
lonely.
Same thing with the business world, right? You lean your ladder against a certain wall, and then you're like, okay, this was the wrong wall, but I'm so high up the ladder that I can't really change ladders, like change walls, So you can't quit. Of course you can quit. Of course you can sort of transition. And that's sort of one of the things that I do really well with coaching, is that I help people who want an off-ramp to something, to a different wall, essentially, and they just need some sort of vehicle and a skill set to do that, and in a responsible way, right? So a lot of people that come to me are usually people that are really top of their game, but dissatisfied. Or something that they were satisfied 10 years ago makes them dissatisfied now. Because you have seasons in life, right?
Yeah.
In the beginning you go, man, this is the best. Then over time, your preferences, your values change, your desires change, they evolve.
Yeah.
But you can be trapped by your own competence because you're so good at it that you can't quit,
Yeah.
So
well, and then there's the fear aspect too, right?
Yeah.
There's an element of like that little voice inside of our heads that say, "Oh, like you couldn't do this, or you're going to fail, or you're not good enough." That kind of just makes you afraid. Like, oh, well, what if you pivot or do something different, and it destroys all that you've built in your life, and so you kind of live in bondage.
You do, yeah. You can be a very high-paid, high-positioned, high-performance slave,
Yeah,
easily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So then the music thing, you felt like you had all these other like talents and all these other gifts to like use and give. And so was that a hard transition to make that decision? Were you in that space of like, okay, how did you make that leap?
Well, I transitioned out gradually, which is probably the responsible thing to do. But it was painful on a number of levels. First of all, my crew, people that started with me, like people that their livelihoods are connected to my success. And I had to basically go, hey guys, I'm going to like off-ramp this thing. And it's like heartbreaking, right? For them. The fans, heartbreaking for fans. Like it's been 20 plus years. I'm not exaggerating. Every once in a while I get some sort of YouTube comment or an email saying, why did you do this? Like the things that you could have done if you stayed, like it's just heartbreaking, right? Because people associate their joy with some of their musical sort of heroes and things like that. And they loved your stuff and they wanted to see more. And then all of a sudden you just decided, I'm not going to do this anymore. Like who does that, right? So I got a lot of bad press as well, people, because it's very rare that people actually do that. And I think I grew up, I have enough of a tolerance for suffering, also high tolerance for risk, and a high value of freedom and agency. That's just sort of embedded in the way I grew up. Yeah. So I escaped the competency trap more easily than most people do. I just go, okay, I'm not feeling it anymore, and that's it. So,
yeah. You have a high tolerance for pain and risk.
Yeah. So it was easy for me internally, externally, relationally, all kinds of ways. It was not, right. So there was just all these other things.
And so what did you pivot into?
I started doing ministry work. I started doing philanthropy.
Okay.
For a little bit of time, and with it.
So it was a higher calling that kind of pulled you out of that?
I think so. Yeah. I felt I was a very, I grew up, it's really ironic. I grew up in a Marxist family, right? Because everybody I knew was an atheist.
Right.
And, but my dad I actually had this conversation with him just a couple of days ago. He was such an idealist. And he would, when he was working in Africa, he could be working in the first world, making sort of middle class, upper middle class money, but he was making pennies. But he was there for the cause because the country was just got their freedom from colonialism and the economy needed to be built. And there were all his friends were people like that. Were like, we're here to build a country, to build a new future for this fledgling sort of democracy, that kind of thing. And so it was sort of hardwired into me to live for a higher cause. And so I've made several decisions like that over like forever, actually, since until recently, where I'm like, okay, I need to sort of correct it. The pendulum has swung way like high cause, low commerce kind of, although I'm an entrepreneur. And I'm like, seriously, dude, see, you have to start thinking about commerce at least on the same level as a cause, right? So I was laughing with my dad on the phone the other day. I'm like, I blame you, dude. Like, you brought me up that way. Do not like give me attitude about, So he laughed.
Yeah, he's like, hey, why aren't you doing
Yeah,
this? Hey, man,
yeah, exactly.
you did this to me.
I'm like, I blame you totally.
So then, was your dad like Catholic or something
No,
like that?
he was a
or
Marxist. He was an
Christian?
atheist.
Oh, really?
He just, and my point
how
is
did
he
you
was
get
very cause driven. That's all. Like that, I got that part. And then when I became a Christian, I was 26. I was at the peak of my career. I had just all these.
How did you become a Christian?
I was super miserable, predictably so, at the peak of my career.
Yeah.
And more specifically, I was terrible. It was sort of, remember how I said the divorce really wrecked me?
Yeah.
I was relationally very unhappy, and I really wanted a family. But then at the same time, in the same breath, in the same sort of being, I was like, yeah, all marriages end in failure and heartache, and the kids are wrecked.
Right.
And so I would basically build something up, and I would start dating somebody, and then I would break it up and date until one day, one of the girls I was dating got pregnant. We had a baby, and I was like, I don't even know how to live, man. Like, I just brought a child into this world. I don't even know how to build a family. And I was really, really depressed and very desperate. And of all things, I didn't think of Christianity because I actually didn't. I was sort of critical of Christianity because the version of it that I saw was very sort of ritualistic and not clear.
Because like what in Russia,
it was Eastern Orthodox,
Christian company, but it's like Orthodox.
Yeah,
right?
Eastern Orthodox. So there's a lot of people in strange garbs, doing like smoky things and saying, chanting and
having like crazy beards.
Yeah,
and hair
big
and
beards
stuff.
and like the crowns and jewels.
It's not like relational.
No, it's not relational. It's not instructional either. Like, it doesn't equip you to do anything. So there's icons. So it was really more of a religion for old people who wanted something to have put their hope in. But to me, I was like, I'm an educated person. What the heck? This is not helpful. And then I bumped into a guy who was a pastor, who was a Protestant pastor. He's a Canadian guy. And he had this wisdom about him. And he had this family. And I was like, I came to his house maybe like a week or two after we met. And his family was there. And he's just a little girl, 5-year-old Briton, and his wife, Tammy. And they were just so sweet together. And I literally turned to him and I'm like, how do I get this? I literally said that. Like, wow. I'm sort of a straight shooter, right? I'm a guy who's very driven, and I was very desperate for that thing. And he was like, "Well, I'll teach you from the Bible if you're open." I'm like, oh, "Okay, let's do this," And that was it. It was so quick.
Wow.
But I think because I was so desperate to acquire that wisdom, and he just said that wisdom is in the Bible, in this lifestyle, and I was like, I'll do anything, because I was an all-in kind of guy anyway.
Right.
I was already done this with music, with other things like that, right? So I'm like, all right, let's go, man. And I got baptized in like 2.5 weeks, completely changed my lifestyle. And part of my confusion with romance is that, you have like millions of teenage girls who think they love you, when you're a pop idol, right? Which is very bizarre. It's just not a normal environment for romance for a young man. So that added to the confusion as well. And I just was like, I'm done. And I literally quit dating, everything, like anything associated with the sort of what we consider the sins of the pop stardom. I cold turkey quit.
Wow. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
All
just
of it.
Gone.
All of it. All of it in one decision, in one fell swoop.
Wow.
Because I was just desperate for the thing on the other side. I wanted to get the prize.
Well, you had tasted it all, right?
Yeah, I was on the. I mean,
and then it was like still you were unfulfilled.
yeah, I tasted it. It's like there's nothing there. It's super discouraging and actually destructive, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, I've done that. I'm not going to do that anymore, and I just turned the other way, basically.
Wow, that's amazing. That's a really cool story. And so then from there, you were like, all right, I'm going to go all in on philanthropy and like start like helping people in need and
we work
building organizations.
We worked with orphans. We started doing these big events. I started working with churches, and I had a ministry for artists and Christian artists for a while. That was super cool, like so cool. There's artists and fashion designers and animators and athletes, and I had like 5 Olympians in just one my ministry that I led.
Wow,
Olympic
cool. What was
athletes.
the name of it?
It was AMS, Arts, Media, Sports.
Okay.
And I had people that were famous came in, but the coolest thing is people that were in it became famous after joining.
Right.
There was like a boy band that became super famous because they all met at this ministry.
What was it, like Plus One or something like that?
No, it was called Xmisia. Xmisia was and AMS, Arts, Media, Sports. It's an X in Russian.
Okay.
So they literally named it after the ministry.
Oh wow!
And became huge, And then they
cool.
did solo careers out of there and stuff like that. So it was really fascinating. So I did that, and we did a lot. I mean, we served thousands of kids. We did this big event for orphans in Moscow, and Michael Jackson came to my event. It was insane, right? Because he was like my hero, right? I mean, he was a big part of why I did music because he was such a huge influence. Right. And then we did like a Hail Mary kind of, let's do this, let's time it when he was playing a stadium and do this big event. We used to do it anyway, and we're like, let's time it and see if we can reach out to his people. We know he loves kids and causes, and fingers crossed. And he came. It was just insane, surreal. So yeah, we did a lot of that, and then eventually I married my wife Deb. She's American, and she moved. I mean, we had no intention of leaving Russia. Had our kids there, had 2 other girls there, and so we have 3 total. Her health started declining. She has fibromyalgia. We couldn't predict that her health was going to be hit by the climate. It's really cold and sucky out there. The climate.
Yeah, what part of Russia were you in?
Moscow. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I've been watching all these YouTube videos on Yucatan. And
Yakutia,
like Siberia.
Yeah, Yakutia.
And it's like
that's
negative 50 degrees Fahrenheit.
It was not that bad, but yeah, I've been to those places too. By the way, like I've been.
Oh really?
Well, I toured all over the country, all over the former Soviet Union, the republics, everything starting from the Baltic states, Estonia, Litva, to the stands like Armenia, Georgia, Kazakhstan, all of those places, all the way to like north of the North Pole line, where there's so the coldest temperature I was exposed to is -43 Fahrenheit, and this is about the point where Fahrenheit and Celsius are the same. They coincide apparently around that point. So like imagine -43 Fahrenheit. It feels like you're on the surface of the moon and you're gonna die in about 10 minutes. Like if you stay out, So we would like jump out of the car and time each other. How long
you could stay outside.
So it was horrible. Like everything turns to ice, like your skin, everything. It's just unbelievable how people live there. But people live there. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is. And so for them, just like, okay, the cold, all that stuff obviously affects your fibromyalgia. And so
we basically decided to move to stateside. Yeah, so about 21 years ago. Yeah. And
wow.
Yeah, and I did philanthropy for a few years. I was basically VP for Latin America for this big charity. Because I speak Spanish, right? I have all these things, that I can do, and I look like me. So
yeah, you must have been a unique Russian-looking dude.
I was exotic out there. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I was exotic out there, and the thing is, that's why I say, when I teach people about personal brand development, right? I'm like, look. Human nature and post-industrial sort of thinking is like you fit in to have success, right? You just put your head down, you fit in. Actually, especially now, you stand out to have success. especially with more modern technology. We're not in the industrial age anymore, and you can reach anyone anywhere. But I learned that lesson like pre-internet, right? Because I land in Russia, and I'm like this dark-skinned kid. They put me in this high school. Everybody's like Slavic looking. And I look like a Pakistani, and at the time, I have sort of darker olive skin, but I was like dark because I was outside all the time.
Yeah, you're like in the sun.
Yeah,
like just tanning.
I look like I'm from India or something, right? And it's just ugly. Dark, and I was super short as well. And then I had like a little growth spurt later, about around 15, 16, something like that. But I was like this. I have pictures of in high school. I was like the tiniest guy, dark skin, like completely out of place, right? I do not fit in at all. And I think that really helped me long term to go, well, if I can't fit in, I'm going to stand out on purpose. And also I had a growth spurt. I looked a little bit more, better than that guy, ugly duckling kind of situation.
Right.
And I stood out and I was exotic, and people were like, you must be an artist. Let's give you a studio to work in or something, and it became a thing. It became part of the brand. Right. You're differentiating yourself. You're embracing how different you are, becomes part of your brand. So, and it's true.
Right.
It was true in the pre-internet days. It's true now, even more, I think. And one of the big things that I do is help people take things that they don't think this is a valuable asset for their brand, and it totally is. Everything from preferences all the way to failures to quirky, contrarian views and things like that, and you shape that, you mind that, and you shape that into a brand, and then you present it to the world, and it's a very different outcome from where you're going, oh, we're just going to do like these other three influencers or thought leaders or whatever, right? I'm going to it's good to imitate, to just learn from somebody, but in the long run, it just doesn't work.
Yeah, and it's that cliche saying, right? Like no one else can be you, so be the best you can be. But there's so much truth around that. Yeah. And then also we all have these different experiences that mold and shape us throughout our life that make us so unique. Kind of like what you were saying. It was like for me, I was like the chubby kid, and so I was like, well, how do I get girls? Because I like girls, but I'm chubby. But I was like, hey, girls like to laugh. So if I can become funny, if
there
I
you go.
get good timing and tell jokes, like, the girls be like, well, he's chubby, but he makes me laugh. He's funny,
Exactly.
And so that was like, that was kind of the brand that I started to develop, was like, the chubby funny guy. And then when I had like 15 minutes of fame on American Idol, and when I was going to Hollywood, it was like, okay, there's a cast. They're trying to build a cast of people. And so they need, the guy who looks like Thor. They need the girl who looks like Britney Spears.
Right.
And then they need the chubby funny guy, And so it was like, put some glasses on, wear a hat. And then it was like,
oh, that's
I'm a
awesome.
part of that cast.
Yeah, I want to see that clip now. I didn't know that about you. That's fantastic.
Yeah, after this call, I just Google Mark Labriola,
I will totally do that now. Absolutely. I have to watch that,
But yeah, it is one of those things that my wife, it's so funny because, she's always like, I'll find some sort of shirt that I think is like, this is so cool. And she's like, that looks so dumb. And I'm like, I know, but if you say it's dumb, I think it's cool. That means it's like part of my brand. Like this is like.
That's right. Yep. Embrace it, man. Embrace your weird.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So, all right. So that kind of brings us into the next phase. I think I want to kind of go with our conversation is kind of, you talked about helping people kind of discover their brand. And again, I feel like people, they connect with people they know, like, and trust, right? They buy things from people they know, like, and trust.
Yep.
And one way to get people to know, like, and trust you is to be present online, right? And having visibility and creating content and all these other kind of things. And so what are some of the things that you run into on a consistent basis where people have a hard time? I mean, I know the big thing for me is like people have a hard time showing up on video, right? They feel awkward.
Yes.
They don't know how to like look into a camera and talk. They think they look weird or whatever. How do you help people kind of overcome some of those things so they can really push into who they are?
Well, the work starts, as I said, a little bit before that. So I have this framework that I use to basically, it's called the 7P framework. And it's basically this way to discover from the inside out. Mm-hmm. And I think that helps when you have sort of clarity around it, even if it's general clarity, when you show up in front of the camera, it actually helps you be excited about it and overcome any awkwardness, like a skill gap that you may have. And everybody has a skill gap there, right?
Right.
But I would say first is like, what are your passions? You know, like I go from the inside out, the passion, the people that you care about on like 3 different dimensions, the pain of the people that you're trying to serve, the promise you can make them of something very specific that gives you a point A to point B, the process you're going to take them through. All these things are sort of developed. Then you choose a platform. That's sort of the outward-looking stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And then you go, okay, what is the profit? How do you make a profit out of this? What platform are you going to use to sort of spread this thing? So it's a 7P construct, really profound and helps people tremendously because it's sort of the step-by-step discovery. And then after you emerge, as you emerge from that, not necessarily after, it could be down in parallel, you do have to overcome sort of this very simple thing. First of all, you need to know how to develop content, right? What to focus on. You know, and everybody's like, I think I have ideas. They have all this. They have like a decade or 2 of expertise, but they don't have it in a focal point. They don't have pillar concepts. So usually build a central focal point and then pillar concepts around it, and then the stories and evidence and sort of points around that. So if you have sort of this construct, you can improve it over time, and you will never run out of content, which is, I think, the biggest fear is that I don't know what to say. I don't know if I have it in me to do it week in and week out. The camera thing, you're right. Public speaking, right? That's another thing, right? It could be public speaking is hard. Speaking on camera is hard. So how do you do that? We work on those things, starting with actually the skills, but also the technology that you use to do it and stuff like that. And then the other part of the skill gap, I think, is writing. It's basically a creative process.
Yeah.
So you can be an operator you can have a multi-million-dollar business. I have a client who has a $250 million business, you know, and he's an extraordinary human being, so gifted. I mean, unbelievable high performer and great communicator. And he even has the writing skills. Most people don't have the writing skills. But if he didn't have a creative process, he just didn't have space for that in his world because he's an operator. He's a leader.
Right.
Well, you need to sort of go, yeah, you're an operator, but you want to be a thought leader. That's different, right? You're an expert, but you also want to be a creator. What do you need to shift? And there's a lot to shift because by that time, you know, if you're an expert, you're probably 30, 35, 40, 45. You have a mortgage, a wife, couple of kids, a Labrador, whatever, right? Like obligations, 3 or 4, you know, people who are accountable to you in your firm, if you're a CEO, whatever, a VP. Your life is so full. If you don't have a creative process, the discipline to pursue it, and then insert that and start creating mastery in that, you're not going to have a brand. Simple as that. It's not happening. You can have the best of intentions, and you're going to fail. So those are the bigger gaps, I think.
Yeah. What do you think? You know, with you coaching high-performing, purpose-driven professionals, you know, what do you think the most common blind spot you see in ambitious founders?
I think they don't see how it's really paradoxical, right? They're confident because they have built something, but I think secretly don't think their expertise is special. To write a book, for example, do a keynote, right? Secretly they go, well, because it's so familiar to them.
Right.
Like
they don't see the uniqueness of it.
They don't. And because they haven't done the work to focus their expertise into a central concept, pillar concepts around it, and all the things that we work on, those are the sort of the building blocks of any intellectual property that goes out. It could be books, keynotes, a YouTube channel, podcast, things like that, right? If you don't focus, you're like the way I'd explain it, if you don't focus, you're like a flashlight. If you focus, you're a laser. Flashlight doesn't really change anything, you know. A laser does, can cut through a lot of stuff. So we turn you into a laser when it comes to expertise. You have a focal point, you focus that into incredible intellectual property and you have to learn how to create content that changes people's lives. And there's no shortcut, bottom line. You have to do it. If you want to go to that point of building a personal brand, nothing else will take you there.
Yeah. Well, you co-founded Third Drive Media, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And what is the Third Drive? What is that?
It was an evolution of a failed company that I founded before that called Hollywood World. I was in LA, and I started a production company. We did music videos and music production for international artists produced in Hollywood. So we had sort of this network of top-notch everything. Directors, producers, DPs, studio, post-production, writers, songwriters, like high grade. And then international artists would go, like, I need something that sounds like whatever, Rihanna, right? And we would like source the stuff, present the stuff, decide what to do, then create the music tracks, like top level. And then every once in a while we'd do a music video, either in conjunction to that or separately with people in Hollywood. So we did that for a while. And in sort of typical fashion of mine, I became like distracted to do something else. And moved like from LA to Austin. I'm going to just keep doing it from Austin. It's all good. And failed to sort of develop diversified markets there. And I was honestly just not paying attention, right? And then because I was focused a lot on the Eastern European market, when the market fell, most of my clients like sort of like, oh, we can't afford you anymore, you know? Right. So that was basically the backstory, like a failed company, which was completely my fault, by the way. And I was like, well, I can do the same exact thing only for businesses and startups and nonprofits. So that's what Third Drive Media became. It's exactly the same thing. Okay, how do I tell a story? How do I present well? How do I raise capital and become successful as a startup founder or church leader or a nonprofit leader, that kind of thing. So we did that and we got like a bunch of awards because it's really a repurposing of the same skill set into just a different
and it's
space.
Cool because I think when you come from a place of being exposed to all these things and then being able to kind of envision how you could take that into like a corporate environment.
Yeah.
You know, it's just a way to repurpose the skills you've already built in a different industry. So what's the name of your current company? So
Third Drive Media we still operate that, and then Exponential is the coaching company. And we again, you see how that you can transition and expand, right? You do nonprofit, you do music, you have an economics degree, you speak several languages, you're sort of exposed to things. Then you build a production company because you already have the Hollywood level grade sort of quality of stuff. You can speak the language of the producer, the arranger, the studio owner. And then you go transfer that to business and startups and nonprofits. And it's like, they're not used to my level of quality even. So it's so easy to compete there because they're like, their About Us videos and websites are so boring and unengaged. And they don't even see it.
Right.
So if I come in and somebody really is willing to have the budget and give it a go, I can say, look, you're even asking the wrong questions through your website. You need to answer different questions. You're asking informational questions, and you have to answer emotional questions. You need to make people feel something. And there's layers in human nature that you're not even touching with the way you communicate things, right? And the same thing with startups or with nonprofits rather. It's the same thing. Is that, one of my clients is a CEO of a nonprofit, and he was just in the program for just 3 months, and he had to go do the speech at the Scala fundraiser that he does every year. And we very easily, I was like, okay, I've been to some of those. And by the way, this is a really good story. A few years ago, Third Drive produced his fundraising video that he still uses every year. So now, when I'm like, dude, I think you need some coaching in how to show up, right? Because you're showing up as a CEO, but you need to show up as a thought leader, as a prophet. You need to touch something that is beyond, here's the work that we do, I'm reporting back, thank you for your generosity, can you give some more? That's that's sort of the dimension. So we work on his speech, and he showed up. I mean, I had people in the room. I wasn't there at the time, unfortunately, who were like, "Who is this guy? Like, you're like a different person, you know?" And he had sort of the record high, raised 1.2 million in an evening, right? So that's the difference in the coaching part versus the sort of doing websites and videos for a company or a fundraiser, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And again, right, it's like telling those stories and connecting on an emotional level with people is so important. Because, I've been to so many of those like nonprofit events, and they just show all these numbers. And I'm like, why don't you show images of the lives that were impacted?
Exactly.
Why don't you tell a story a life that was changed, because that's going to drive more, donations. That's going to drive more support because people are going to be able to like really connect with you. But then they're always like, oh, well, it costs too much money. And it's like, we have this crappy PowerPoint you've been using for the past 5 years. And
exactly. Yeah. We don't have the budget. I mean, the nonprofits are notoriously terrible. They do not have a marketing budget, for example.
Yeah.
Which is the very thing.
Like, wow, you're like a $10 million organization and you have $0 to spend on helping you get more money.
Yeah. And they just don't, because and I understand why they associate, I think, marketing budget with for-profit
with the
work.
Spend.
Yeah. And for-profit work, like, but in the nonprofit world, I mean, obviously the bigger companies, they all have marketing staffs, not just budgets. But some of the smaller guys, they have like one person barely out of college, doesn't have strategy at all. They can post on Instagram. That's basically the marketing they do. That's not marketing. It's not marketing. You have to say things differently,
right?
So, so it's really fun to be able to, because I'm a very cause-driven guy, right? I'm like, oof, I love serving the nonprofit leader, pastors and churches, like that's another sort of dimension where pastors just don't show up as thought leaders beyond the pulpit. Yeah. And it's like the highest opportunity for them to expand and reach more people
and make an impact.
Totally. Yeah. But they don't learn those skills. It's just, and it's an easy jump for them theoretically because they can speak. At least they can speak publicly. That's what they do.
Right.
But they don't translate. The skill gap for them is in front of a camera. How do I create content? How do I write in a certain format for a specific platform? That sort of thing. And it's like untapped potential right there.
Yeah. It seems to me like kind of hearing your story is that you've kind of taken the tools and the relationships and everything that you built and have kind of just reinvented yourself multiple times throughout the years. Yeah. And you kind of just, habit stacked or relationship stacked to kind of do the next thing. What do you think has to be true internally for you to kind of reinvent yourself and the work that you do?
I think self-awareness is number one, right? What season are you in, and are you happy in that season? Like, are you doing what you're supposed to be doing in the season? So I divide the professional sort of life of a human being into 4 seasons, just like summer, winter, etc. You're first a student, always, right? You're a student,
right?
In high school and in college, you're a student, or you're just apprenticing, you're a student. You're just watching the thing being done. But you're not doing the thing. You're learning about the thing. Then you become a practitioner. You're learning about the thing. You're into the workforce, and you're exploring and puzzling in your 20s, that kind of thing. And you're, doing something that might be uninspiring, but you're learning alongside somebody, because you're a practitioner that is learning. Then there's the mastery season. And where you're, okay, I can do stuff. I can start getting promotions. I'm VP, CEO, whatever, right? General manager. And then, or tenured professor, for example, depending on lead pastor, that's mastery across different spaces. And then you enter a 4th phase called sage. And that's when you start feeling you are there to impart, to train, to influence, to be a thought leader. And all 4 seasons are very organic, very natural to all of us. It's almost like an internal mechanism, right? So, for example, if you probably remember yourself from going to high school or going to college, and then you start doing music and you get your first gig and you get your first couple $100 and it's like, oh my gosh, I've never had this kind of money, right?
Right.
And you're like so excited, right? Because you're a grown up now. Like 5 years from there, $200 is not going to do for you. It's just, it's not a thing, right? You want more and more and more. So your seasons first you enter the workforce, you just are happy to be in the vicinity of grown-ups and learning stuff. But then you develop some skills and you go, well, where's my place here, you know? And you find your way into a more influential place until you hit mastery. And then now you're calling the shots in whatever space. And you hustle a lot in mastery, because now you have all these layers. Most of the time people get married, they have kids, they have obligations and stuff like that, right? On all kinds of professional, personal, etc. And then eventually you become dissatisfied with that, because almost like this an internal mechanism goes off and goes, I want to give back, I want to influence, I want to train, I want to tell my stories. I have so many stories to tell. And you can be at the top of your career making millions of dollars and you still have that mechanism go flip.
Yep.
And you start quietly being unhappy, you know. You know, so a lot of the people that come to me are people that are in between mastery and sage.
Yeah.
And they want an on-ramp to sage and an off-ramp from mastery. And it takes whatever, a few years, but so as I said, self-awareness, understanding that there are seasons that you might have. I was off the charts happy being on MTV and hearing my voice on the radio and being on a magazine. I was like, what is this? Somebody pinch me. To fast forward 5 years and going, you know. So you have to be sort of self-aware enough going, am I happy? Why not? What do I need to change? Do I have the courage to sort of transition? How does it look like exactly, right? Do I need guidance for this? What is it going to cost me? Is it okay even to suck? Because if you transition, it means that the new thing you want to transition you're bad at it. And you're not used to being bad at anything, because you've been like the top of the food chain for a decade or so, right?
Right.
It's like, are you okay with sucking for a little bit? I mean, and some people are not. They're like, wait a minute, I'm bad at something? Yeah, you're bad at something.
Right.
Everybody's bad at something, right?
Yeah. What? And this is kind of maybe my final question. So, having a faith and growing a business, this is one area that I think, you know, I struggled with for a few years. Was, you know, how do I guess the question is the world and the entrepreneur world, you know, is always talking about, you know, grinding and crushing and, you know, creating the perfect email sequence and the funnel to, you know, drive traffic and close more deals and make more calls and all these other kind of things. Have you struggled with, or what is your thought about bringing God into your business or your process and kind of holding it with an open hand? Or is it just like, like this is the world system, you get in it and you
I think there's more there on a spiritual level than people realize, I think. And you actually set it up perfectly, because you go, okay, I have to hustle and learn and funnels and all the things. And you do need to learn some of those things. This is just a skill set to do the thing that you want to do to get to the other side of, you know, where you are. But really, ultimately, that's not what gets you there. It's just a skill that helps you get there. But the thing that gets you there is understanding purpose and being connected and being at peace and being creative. And all these things are spiritual things, right? So if you hustle 24/7, as a matter of fact, most of the people that I coach, they are workaholics. Not necessarily even by choice, it's just slow. It's a slow build into that, right? And I have to like go, look, if you want to get where I know you want to get, you need to have a Sabbath day. That's a spiritual principle, a day of rest. What do you mean Sabbath day? I mean complete cessation of work. Netflix, don't diet, make love to your wife, go for a walk. What? How? I don't even understand the words coming out of your mouth right now. Like that's the disconnect, right? And that's just the baseline. I just say, this is like kindergarten. This is not even advanced anything. Then you need to add to that the ability to emotionally self-regulate to a degree where you can have peace, introspection, and wisdom flow out of you. Because without peace, introspection, and wisdom flowing out of you, you can't create valuable content. No funnel will help you.
Right.
No automation will do that for you. You're going to fail. Or you're going to be a miserable, sort of calculated, formulaic person. And I know you don't want that, right? So what you want is to have peace in your heart, to understand how do you emotionally self-regulate, to even think deeply about the wisdom you want to impart and change and share with the world and have a legacy. That's a very spiritual thing. Why are you on earth in the first place? Like, what are you supposed to be doing right now? You know, like, these are deep things, and then you have to weave those in very practical ways into your life, where you have a creative fountain coming out of you. And and that's what I enjoy most, is seeing people go from, I want this on some level, but I have no idea how to get there, to going, I see it, I can see the value. I had a client the other day say, Christian, I have so much stuff in my mind that I want to share with the world. I can't sleep at night anymore. I'm like, all right, sleep at night, but thank you. Because they tapped into their creative genius. And they developed a process to actually deliver it to people. Right. And once that establishes, it's like the floodgates open, and it starts pouring out of them, and they shift into this new space, this new way of being, basically.
That's great. Well, I want to leave people with maybe some encouragement and maybe an action step that they could take next week. You know, so if someone listening, I feel the theme of this conversation is kind of like, taking risks, and maybe being courageous to take a step. So if someone feels maybe that they feel called to something bigger, maybe a big transition, maybe to do a career pivot, maybe start something, but maybe they're afraid of the cost. What's the first courageous step they should take this week to kind of start moving in the right direction?
Well, it's going to cost you time, money. It's going to cost you treasure, time, talent, and time. And it's basically, you have to sort of go, is the thing that I want to get to, am I willing to invest time, treasure, and talent into the thing? All three. And the thing is, all three are non-negotiable, and all three are absolutely necessary to get to a new place, a higher ground. So I think sort of counting the cost is going, okay, time, treasure, talent. That's going to disrupt my life for a while, and I think, and I'm saying those things, words of encouragement. It might actually be discouraging to some people that are not built like me. It is encouraging to somebody like me. If you're built like me, you're a macro thinker before you're a micro thinker, right? A macro thinker is like, okay, it is what it is. I want to get there. It's going to cost me time, treasure, and talent. And because I want to get there, I'm willing to do all three, and let's go. That's the original story of how I became a Christian basically tells you the same thing, right? Like, yes, I want this. This is what it takes to get there. I'm all in, right? Yeah. And some people might not be encouraged by that, and I totally understand that. But I'm just
go find somebody else.
Yeah, just find another expert who could speak to that group, right?
Yeah, awesome. Well, cool. Listen, Christian, thanks so much for hanging out with me and sharing your story and your journey. And this has been a great conversation. I feel like I could hang on and keep chatting with you.
Thanks, man. Thanks, Mark. Yeah, and I'm very excited about getting to know you. And I'm literally hanging up, and I'm going to look up your American Idol stuff immediately.
Nice. What if people wanted to connect with you, get more information, maybe hire you to be a coach? What's the best way to get in contact?
Look, if you want to just hear more of this kind of stuff, just go to my newsletter. It will literally cost you nothing. ChristianRayFlores.com is the URL, and you'll just sort of get an email once a week. And the treasure is investment is zero or little if you like a paid subscriber. But if you really feel like, okay, this dude has the goods, go to exponential without the E, starts with an X, .life, and then find a place where you can sort of apply, and then sort of an application process.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And thanks for listening to The Friday Habit. If you go to The Friday Habit .com. You can find show notes for this episode. You can also find links to our websites and ways to get in touch. At the bottom of the page, you can download our guide to the Friday Habit System that'll help you set aside one day each week to dedicate fully on working on your business instead of always in your business. You can hit us up at hello@thefridayhabit. And until next time, remember, live every day like it's Friday.